Hi, and welcome to this 50th episode of the Values Workshop. It's a great joy to have you, Hamsini, surely because you were one of the first people that I spoke to in the first 4 or 5 episodes, and you kind of spoke the things in my mind even before I knew them. So it is a very joyful affair to have you as my guest on this Golden Jubilee episode. Um, Before we begin, would you want to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Thanks, Bunty. I can't call you Surinder. I think I've always known you as Bunty. So
Yeah,
anyway, I wanted to say that it is an honor to be part of your Golden Jubilee episode, and I was very delighted when you had approached me with your idea, and I thought it was a wonderful idea and something very relevant to today's context, where
yeah,
I think mostly people are looking for peers or people like them to discuss and learn from and exchange ideas. I think more people now want dialogue and to learn from fellow peers. There is less, at least in our kind of professional social class, I think there is less appetite for what is classically known as gyan from an authority figure.
yeah,
So I think, uh, you know, so I think you're doing a wonderful service, and I'm so delighted on honored to be part of it.
yeah.
To introduce myself, I'm Hamsini. I'm married. I'm 56 years old. I've done an MBA in from IIM Bangalore, studied business and commerce, and then worked in consumer insights, research, advertising, branding. Now I do something called semiotics, which is a more formal study of signs, symbols, narratives for how meaning is made and how meaning is constructed. And so, to that extent, it actually has a lot of uh, connection with Buddhism. In fact,
Oh,
I think I began to understand Buddhist ideas more deeply after I learned semiotics formally.
okay.
So, yeah. And for the audience, Bunty and I go back a long way to our days in JWT. And I think we share a common interest in Buddhism
Yeah,
and
people,
Buddhist teachings.
yes. Uh, it's fantastic that the words that you're using are also running in my mind in different ways, including how you perceive yourself, as well as how you spoke about the initiative I'm doing. Because today's topic, I have often wondered when I get you as a guest, what is the topic that I'll be able to uh, crack the Hamsini code and make her surprised? Okay, this is what we are doing. So I hope this one stands the test of time.
Mm.
Of late, um, the topics that I get in my head need not necessarily have words that fall in place. And I
Mm.
actually put them later as names because the topics are are much more deeper than I would be able to coin a phrase for them. So I'll give you a bit of context before I tell you what I have decided to name it. I was thinking that there are a few words that are no longer part of local lingo as much as they were when we were growing up. So words that one thought about were sacrifice, renunciation, uh, how much is enough kind of thought process. And from there, while thinking a little deeper, when we last spoke and you asked me whether I had the topic, this was where I stood, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I have, after a bit of consultation with a few friends, I have decided to call it "Is Sacrifice Outdated?" as a concept. Is sacrifice outdated? So also I'll put myself out there, and I will not give you a context initially, which I generally do. So how do you look at this topic, and what are your thoughts on it? Initial thoughts.
I think among the urban, educated, professional, and middle class, who have benefited heavily from or benefited a lot from post 1991 liberalization, and who live in a consumerist worldview. Sacrifice is an outdated concept because they believe that there is plenty, and we should, everything is available, choice is available, it's up to you. Finally, the only constraint is whether you have the means and the smarts to access the choice. So actually, life does not call upon you to make sacrifices at all.
Okay.
And therefore, kinds of things that the farmers protesting outside Delhi, Singhu border, especially the Sikh farmers, and their narrative, what they spoke about, etc. And among them, because the Sikh tradition runs very deep, so the stories and narratives of the gurus, how they sacrificed for the people, all of that is still very alive. It's part of people's lived reality because those stories and narratives have been passed down. They are narrated over and over again. People know them, they know them deeply, and they feel them, those stories. So, there, the narrative of sacrifice or giving up something that is important for you, for a greater cause, for the greater good, fighting for what you believe in and believe is rightfully yours. And if that fight calls for the ultimate sacrifice, which is your life, and where you then become a martyr for the cause. So these ideas are very much cherished and held to be still very important and very relevant. But in an urban milieu, a metro city, urban, affluent, educated middle class, where children have grown up in abundance, they have been indulged by parents, they have not ever been called upon to give up on something. Now, they may not always get exactly what they want when they go out and compete in the real world, especially from a job or a career point of view, or maybe you met the girl, you fell in love with the girl, but she didn't want you, or vice versa, or maybe those sort of family background issues came up and you gave up on it and moved on. But even then, in the urban ethos, the teaching and the messaging among the young people, at least, is move on. So resilience is prized, move on is prized, and move on is considered the way to be. So, okay, this girl didn't work out, move on, there are other girls. This job didn't work out, move on, there are other jobs. Maybe there's something else that is meant for you. So, therefore, it is an inherently you could say positivity oriented narrative in that sense, but within that construct, sacrifice doesn't have any place at all.
So
Because sacrifice assumes that there's a permanency to the what you don't get or what you cannot have. So therefore you have to sacrifice, you have to give it up once and for all. And that act of sacrifice is, for example, in that farmers and in that whatever, that is considered to be something great, something noble, something that reveals a finer character or a more enlightened human being is the one who can actually sacrifice and live with the consequence or live through the consequences of that sacrifice. So it comes from a very different understanding of the world, call it worldview, where sacrifice is actually celebrated or, regarded as something to be admired.
Yeah.
as a great and noble act. But among urban middle class, nobody will consider sacrifice as a noble act. They think sacrifice means he's a bit of a loser.
Okay. Uh, this is very interesting. What you spoke of. On one hand, it is quite an umbrella thing to be speaking about, but you also talked about the mindset that uh, causes us to be against the concept of sacrifice. Uh,
Mm.
and you also started with the idea of Buddhism. So one of the understandings that I seem to have of dana
Mm.
in the Buddhist tradition is the sense of I am giving away a part of what I have to learn
Mm.
to be a little more selfless of sorts.
Mm. Mm.
So in a way, I'm doing it for my own benefit. It's not that I'm just benefiting the other person. So my
Mm.
uh, question to you, one, uh, okay, I'll come down to a very small example that was running in my head. I do not know whether that qualifies as sacrifice, but it is a very interesting concept which no longer happens. So when we were very, very young, as in I must be 8, 10 years old, till then it was quite all right to go to your neighbor's house and ask for something that was missing at your place. So sugar
Mm.
खत्म हो गया और नमक चाहिए
Mm.
कुछ ऐसा छोटा मोटा चीज weren't seen as big deals to be going and borrowing from your neighbor.
Mm.
But as we grew, I think when I reached my 20s, then there were jokes about it. That this guy keeps on
Mm.
coming to borrow, he's not a good guy,
Mm.
or
Mm.
he's parasitical, was the
Mm.
underlying meaning, and he's not. How can he do? Then from middle class, I think 1991 onwards, he started looking down, saying that he's not well enough. He doesn't do well enough in his work. He's effect. But looking at it from the inside out, why would I hesitate to go and borrow a bowl of sugar if sugar is over at my place? What is it? It's really not a big deal materially. So what is it that I am afraid of going and knocking and we are with each other. It's not that we hate each other, but just this concept itself makes us feel lesser. So why is this sense of uh, we don't find ourselves capable to go out and do this?
I think when you are more middle class or lower middle class, or everybody has a little less, then it is part of your way of life that you have mutual dependency, and nobody judges the other because everybody is sailing in the same boat, right? So everybody understands that a certain degree of lack is inevitable, and that lack can be in small things because you forgot, or lack can be in bigger things because you genuinely
Yeah.
don't have. So you are in the end of the month, you run out of money. It's a common occurrence to everybody. So therefore, if you borrow from somebody to tide over your last 4 days, when you are really out of money, then tomorrow you may take from him, tomorrow he may take from you. So it is like a karma pool that circulates like that. This is also a kind of sharing, borrowing, lending, giving, taking. You can put different terms to it, but that is a practice, and nobody is judged. If you keep within certain accepted limits of it, nobody is judged. It is just the way it is, right? And everybody understands and empathizes with each other because they have lived through that themselves. That feeling of not having money in the bank, or that feeling of how whatever, of running out of something, and then last minute something, those sort of things. So therefore it doesn't call for judgment. But when you become much more affluent and educated as a combination, you are expected to be much better planned and organized, so you don't run out of things like that.
Okay.
And then secondly, you have the means. So what can be that you run out of sugar or dahi or whatever it is. And now to even more so, you have apps, you have milk basket, you can order in the middle of the night at 11 p.m. You realize, oh, दूध नहीं है, दही नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, I've run out of something I needed. App, phone उठाओ, app में डालो और कल सुबह आ जाएगा. सो नेबर के डोर नॉक करके वहां से दही लेने का क्या जरूरी ही नहीं है. सब कुछ अवेलेबल शॉप्स,
Yeah.
सब कुछ is available in the shops. The ultimate convenience is available in terms of apps, delivery, Dunzo, Swiggy, whatever you want, you order, it will be delivered at your doorstep. So where is the need for you to go and knock on your neighbor's door and ask for things?
Okay.
So if you do, then what you're afraid of is judgment around, are you so disorganized? Are you so unplanned? Or what? Otherwise, how can your life be so chaotic and such a mess that you don't even have basics together with you?